Hello, and welcome to the shed. In today's video, we're going to be making a great little tool that not only prevents rust, it also helps to lubricate the sole of your plane and your saws. Hope you enjoy. Oils have been used for thousands of years to prevent rust and lubricate metal objects, going right back to at least the Roman times where they used animal fats and olive oil for this purpose. A rag in a can oiler, popularised by Paul Sellers, was a common tool that they made in their trade schools, and it was one of the first things, from what I could determine, that were made in these trade schools when they started, so they could lubricate and prevent rust. So let's jump down here. We're going to make the rag in the can oiler that was popularised by Paul Sellers today. This is just a little baked bean can, one of those little one serve sort of cans. Label off, and we're going to do a little bit of work on this can before we can use it. We're going to need a pair of pliers, decent pair of scissors if required, some 3-in-1 oil, and a rag. One thing, if you are using a rag, you want to try and get one that's got a natural fibre like cotton or linen or like a canvas, something like that. Something that's going to stand up. I know when I was reading online that one person said that in their trade school they made it using a felt tile, so if you could get that, maybe you could use a felt tile for that as well. But we're using the rag today. So first of all with this, we're going to start with the can. Now you can see where I've already flattened this out a little bit. We've got this little lip because it's an easy pull can. So we want to actually get that lip out of the way because that's going to make it harder to jam the rag in there. Although it may hold it, I like the idea of getting rid of it. And so we can actually come in with a pair of pliers like this, push that lip down a little bit. You're just pushing forward. And once you've pushed that forward, you can actually just come in, just push that down with the pliers. And you can just work your way around the can doing this. And in a few minutes it'll be complete. So now we've done that, we want to move on and get our rag ready to put into this. So I'm going to grab my shirt and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use a shirt like this to actually get the size that I want. This shirt, I've gone ahead and pulled all the buttons off the main bit here and off the sleeves. What I'm going to do is actually just fold it in half down the middle as if we were going to put it on, and then I just fold the sleeves in. I'm going to do it all. You could take the sleeves off if you wanted to. Now I'm actually going to fold it like so, but I'm also going to fold this side in, so I'm going to fold them both into the middle. So we end up with a strip sort of like this. Now we want to make sure that when this goes in, it's going to overhang the can a bit. So with use, it kind of pushes down and it sort of mushrooms over the top. So I'm going to stay away from the collar end. I'm going to come down this bottom end just because it's a small area to work with, and I'm going to wind this up really, really tight. You want to get it up as tight as you can, and that's going to give a more solid top to the top of your can oiler. And as you're rolling, you're going to keep seeing, so you can see that's going to fit on there. You can probably go a little bit more because you want it to be a nice tight fit. That's probably too much, so I can come back a touch, and you can see that it's going to bulge out here, so that's about the right size. So now that I've got the right size, I'm going to come in with a pair of scissors or a knife or whatever you've got and cut through it. If it's too thick for you to cut right through, you might have to do it in a couple of passes. So we're just going to cut through it like so. So now I've cut it to how it fits. I'm just going to double check this is going to be the right length, and it looks like this is going to be a little too wide for me now. So now's the time to check to make sure that it's going to fit the way you want. So I'm just going to refold it and see how we go. About 1 inch off the top of the can here, or 25mm, and I have a slightly thicker piece here, which is what I want. That's going to sit on the top of the can, and it's going to hold the oil and make a decent pad right on the top. So now we're going to go ahead and re-roll this as tight as we can, except we're going to start from that cut edge this time. And you can see how I've got this half fold. So I'm going to turn it over like this and start rolling from this point here and get it nice and tight. So we can see it's going to be too big to fit that in there. So we're going to have to cut it off here once again. Now, it's all about working with the rag you've got and trying to work it out the way that you want it to fit. And as I've done here, and as we do in woodworking, we dry fit things. So we can actually just double check this one a couple of times. It doesn't hurt until we get it right. Then we can go ahead and put it in the can. And even if you're putting it into the can and you found that it was too long, you can take it back out and refold it. Now, we can go ahead and stick it in the can now. If it doesn't slide all the way in easily, grab a little screwdriver and help to feed it in using a screwdriver. And you want to make sure it goes all the way in. So I'm kind of working around, putting the screwdriver there and then just under the lip of the tin, as you can see here, and then giving it a push. And that helps to ride it in there. You can also give it some persuasion on the top. And this bit of my rag's going to be in the way by the looks of it. So I'm just going to quickly nip that off. Now this would be a little easier if you were just using like a sheet or an old tablecloth or something like that, or even a tea towel. But being able to use an old shirt, which I know a lot of you are going to have around, is actually a great option for this particular tool. Now, I'm still not quite happy with that. I'm just going to push that in a little bit further. Just going to get that little cut edge down in there so it doesn't want to fray. And you give it a couple of swift whacks this way. If you've got a mallet, you can just and you can see now that's pushed it into a nice little sort of pad that's overhanging the top, and that means that when we use it, the middle rim just here can't actually hit anything else. So there's our little pad made. Now it doesn't take long to do this, but you can take your time, get it in there so it's a nice tight pad, and you can see it's got no chance of falling out. You want it to be a very tight fit if you can. I've got a 3-in-1 oil. I've got this other one here which is the same stuff, just a different brand. So even if you've got a couple of different bottles, you can still pour it in there. It's all going to do the job that you want it to do. But if you're out there buying it, 3-in-1 oil. I've heard other people use Camilla oil, which is the Japanese oil for preventing rust that's been used for hundreds of years. But this is just basic 3-in-1 oil, and that's going to be the easiest thing for you to get a hold of. You could maybe even use mineral oil, but I prefer the idea of 3-in-1 oil because it's a thinner oil. Apologies, the camera went out there a little bit. So what I've just done is we started charging this with the 3-in-1 oil. And we just run it around on those sides here first, and then start running it in on the top here, and we can see that that's just going to soak in, and you'll keep charging the top of it until it won't soak in anymore, and then you know it's fully charged with the oil. I've got this other oil here, I'm just going to use that up as well. And so it's just a waiting process on the top here. So that's soaked in, and so you can just keep adding a little bit more and a little bit more. Until it fully soaks in. Reason being is, once it's fully soaked in, that's going to keep wicking up through the material. And so every time you use it, it's going to keep wicking until it's completely dried out. And you may want to put some sort of a lid over the top of this to keep the dust off it, but I know Paul Sellers doesn't. You can just keep it out of the way of most of the dust. Even if a little bit dust does get on there, it's not really going to stop its effectiveness. Starting to slow up how fast it soaks in, so I think we're pretty much fully charged there now. So ideally, you might want to leave this for a few hours or overnight to fully soak in. Ideally, I don't think you really want to use it straight away, but if you're eager to get into it, and so I can show you how to use this, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use it straight away. So if you've seen how Paul Sellers does this, you'll notice that he actually runs it like that to lubricate the sole of his plane. You can run it on the sides of your plane to help prevent the rust, and it's just going to leave a very light film of oil. I don't know if you can see it. It's just a very, very thin film. And the more you use it, the thinner that film is going to become. And you'll know when you need to recharge it with oil is when it's no longer leaving a film of oil on it. Now, this is probably left a little bit too thick, and that's why we say we want to leave it. But if you did want to use it straight away, you can just grab a piece of paper towel and just lighten that back a bit, just so it's a very thin film if you wanted to use it straight away. Now, you can use this on your saws as well to help lubricate them, run it all over there, and that's going to also help prevent rust because we're leaving that very thin layer of oil on the surface. Now, you might say maybe that attracts some dust. It might do, but it's also going to inhibit the rust because the oxygen can't actually get to the metal. So even if dust does stick to the outside of it, it's not contacting the metal directly and thus prevents the rust. And so this is a very cheap way of getting this job done. It helps to lubricate the soles and prevent the rust. So there you have it, folks. That's how you make the rag in a can oiler, which is great for rust prevention and also to reduce friction on your hand planes, saws, chisels, anything really. And I think that it's an essential tool in the poor man's sort of workshop where they might not want to pay for candles, you might not be able to afford to make paste wax for preventing rust, which I think works just as well. There's nothing wrong with this, it works well. Personally, if you've got the wax, I prefer adding that little wax layer on there because it makes the tools a little less likely to grab dust than the oil, but the oil does a great job and, as I mentioned, has been used for thousands of years to do just that. So go out there, grab yourself a rag, grab yourself a little tin. It doesn't have to be metal. You could use like a little vitamin bottle out of plastic, something like that. Anything that you can actually jam a rag in, and you'll see that this means it's much cleaner to use and easier to use than just a rag that you might keep in an airtight container or just a piece of paper towel charged with oil. So this is a step up from that because it's much easier to use and keeps it all nice, clean and tidy and in a contained container. So if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing down below. It really does help the channel out more than you know. And while you're down there, don't forget to comment. Have you made a rag in a can oiler after watching Paul Sellers? What do you think of it? Let everyone else know. For those people that have not made it, let them know in the comments what you think of it and whether you think it's worthwhile making. And if you'd like to support me a little bit further, please consider checking me out on Instagram and Patreon. The links are down in the description. And if you'd like to see another video on how to prevent rust on your tools using a paste wax, check out that video up here, and also the Poor Man's Tool playlist that this video is part of. Bye for now.